Most beneficent, most merciful. I would like to greet all of you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessing of Almighty God be with each and every one of you. I would like to start with a recitation from the Quran as it is our tradition. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. In those few verses, the believers are addressed to speak words of appropriate justice, and they are reminded of the virtue of doing that God will indeed rectify their deeds, forgive them their shortcomings. And the last verse that I read addresses the issue of trust, that Almighty God has offered that trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they refused to take the trust, and mankind accepted the trust because of the knowledge that has been endowed to mankind. And of course we are reminded that those who carry that trust and give it its due will be of those who are successful, and those who do not will bear the consequence of their actions. So with those words from the Holy Quran, and the translation is actually very rough in terms of, I didn't actually read the text of the English translation, I will give you the meaning. I would like to welcome you all to the 2017 Meet Your Candidate Forum, which is organized by Al-Amin Post newspaper in collaboration or coordination and collaboration with the BC Muslim Association, Richmond Mosque. And the purpose of this forum is to provide the Muslim voters and our guests with information about the issues that are important to them as we approach within 1 week to the provincial elections, which take place a week from today on May 9. And like all British Columbians, there are many issues regarding to physical responsibility, infrastructure, senior care, family and children, stewardship of our natural resources, of which we are endowed with plentiful of it in terms of forests and minerals and other resources that British Columbia is rich of. And these are all issues that are on the minds of many British Columbians, including Muslim voters here in Richmond. So as we proceed with the program, I would like to introduce to my right, Dr. is not here. First of all, I would like to thank Al-Amin Post, and in particular Brother Jafar. He's busy with his camera, but in working with us to organize this function. On my right, Dr. Irfan Sheikh is the secretary of the branch here in Richmond, the VCMA branch. He will be our MC for the evening, and he will also moderate this session. So I'm going to get out of his way and let him carry you through the evening. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair, may Allah, God reward you in the best manner, Brother Abdul-Aziz. And may He reward our candidates for taking the time to come to be with us this evening. I know you're busy campaigning, and I know we're a small little backwater in Richmond just off Blooddown Road, but we think we're important, and it's evident that you think we are important also by virtue of the fact that you're here. So thank you for being here this evening. Before we begin, if you have not registered, please do so. We need to, so that we can be in touch with you in terms of informing you about future events on behalf of Al-Amin Post. They are doing the organization of this, so they would like you to make sure you register. If you have any questions, we will not accept questions unless they're written down, so take the time to write them down and pass them on to us, and we will try to make sure we get as many in. There are some questionnaire forms available from Alameen, and they would like to find out what your thoughts and views are, and so please take a minute to do that. So, we welcome our candidates today. I'm going to introduce them quickly, and I'm going to go according to my list. I won't go from left to right because I'll mess the names up. I know I'll do that. On the top of our list is Linda Reid, BC Liberal Party. Chak R, BC NDP. And they are from the riding of Richmond South Centre. Then from Richmond Steveston, we have here tonight Roy Sakata from the BC Green Party. Right. This riding, the newly formed riding of Richmond Queensborough, we are joined by 4 candidates: Jazz Johal, BC Liberal Party; Amarjit Singh, BC NDP; Michael Wolfe, BC Green Party; and Kay Hale, BC Conservative Party. We have 1 candidate from the riding of Richmond North Centre. We're pleased to welcome Ryan Marcy, BC Green Party. And we thank the others who responded that they could not come, but we know that you're missing a great event here, and we hope you will carry the message forward to your colleagues that we as a Muslim community are here, and we are, while we may not be as numerous as other groups in the province, we're very proud to be Canadians, and we're very proud to participate in the process. And once again, we thank you for being here tonight. Now, today's program is to help us to make an informed choice before we cast our ballot on next Tuesday, a week today. As current teacher, educator, retired, but still an educator, one of the things I hold most important is when we choose according to knowledge. And this is very important in our faith, that God asks us, are those with knowledge equal to those without knowledge? And so we choose with knowledge. So that's why we're here tonight, to learn what the various positions are with respect to A, the parties, and B, individual candidates in our riding. So Alameen Post, as I mentioned, is very pleased to have them as a sponsor of this event, and we thank them for their community interest in making sure that the community has the opportunity to be informed. Just a little bit to our candidates about this mosque. Richmond Jamea Masjid is a cornerstone for Muslims living in not just Richmond, but in the entire Lower Mainland area. This mosque was the first mosque for BCMA, not the first in BC. That's on West 8th Avenue. The mosque that's built there and run by the Pakistan-Canada Association. But this mosque here from the ground up was built, and we're in the process, of course, of planning an expansion for this masjid. So we look forward to the next elected officials in assisting us with that process. Just had to get that plugged. Just a few housekeeping rules. Men's washrooms are at the back of the hall to the right. Ladies' washrooms upstairs on the second floors, if you need to know where they are. We are having refreshments, and they are available at the back. And I know that Brother Jaffer was cooking the samosas with Brother Gul all afternoon. Not quite, but hopefully they taste good. All right, so now let's get on with why we're here. To ensure a maximum number of issues are discussed in the limited time frame, the format of the forum shall be as follows. Only written questions will be entertained. If you do not have a form, please raise your hands and pass the questions to the moderators. Myself and the editor of Alameen Post, Brother Jeffrey Bamji, we will screen and look at the questions and collate them so that we don't ask the same question over again. We'll try and stick to some themes. We will be doing a ballot to determine the order of speaking. The candidates, Mr. Bamji, will be having them draw a piece of paper with a number on it, and that will determine the order of the speaking. Our timekeeper is right there. Our timekeeper will raise his hand when 30 seconds is left, and then a reminder of 10 seconds before raising his hand for the final time before stopping. In the first round, each candidate will introduce themselves. So let's put the order of speaking up before I go through the rules. So we've got Mr. Joe Hall, drew number 1. Mr. Reed, number 5.
2 is second. So when I think of this, it is number 4.
I'll make sure you've written it all up.
5. Well, number 3 is the chapter.
Okay. Should have the 8 up there. 8 people.
6 is
Mr. Marcy. Okay. So the order for speaking, that's it, I think. Yeah, that's it. So the order of speaking will be, first off, lead off, Mr. Joe Hall. Second will be Kay Hill. Third, Mr. Chakao. Fourth, Mr. Alan Singh. 5, Ms. Linda Reed. 6, Mr. Ryan Marciu. 7, Mr. Roy Sakata. And 8, Mr. Michael Wolf. All right, so you know your order. That's great. So, let's get back to the rules quickly. All right. In the first round, each candidate will introduce themselves. Maximum allowable time is 2 minutes. In the second round, each party will designate one candidate to speak about their party platform. Maximum time will be 4 minutes. In the third round, in ascending order, the candidates will be asked by the moderators selected questions from the audience. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer, and then one candidate from the other parties can have a 1-minute rebuttal. So, 2 minutes to respond to questions from the audience, 3 1-minute responses from the other parties. And in the final round, the moderators will ask one question to all of the candidates. I'm not telling you what that question is yet. And then you will have 1 minute for closing remarks. All right, if time permits, there could be follow-up questions on the topics. So, we are at 7:16. We have approximately an hour and 12 minutes. 8:30, 8:35, I believe, until the sunset prayer. So we got a lot of ground to cover. And so I would like now to introduce Mr. Joe Hall for his opening remarks. Thank you, Mr. Joe Hall.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for organizing this event today. Salam alaikum. Thank you for help to all the candidates as well for participating. My name is Jazz Joe Hall. I'm the BC Liberal candidate in Richmond, Queensborough. A little bit about myself. I quit my job about 6 months ago to campaign full-time for this position in Richmond, Queensborough. Prior to that, I was a Director of Communications for the BC LNG Alliance, Liquefied Natural Gas Alliance, a trade association that represents some of the main LNG players in this province, Shell, Chevron, Exxon, Indian Oil and Gas, and Sinopec, and many others. Prior to that, I was a journalist for 23 years, CKNW and at BCTV/Global. I covered local news for many years, traveling throughout this province, meeting many people of different backgrounds and covering issues throughout this province, and also served as Global Television's West Coast correspondent, Global National West Coast correspondent, and prior to that, as their South Asia Bureau Chief based in India, and then also as their East Asia Bureau Chief based in Beijing. I've had the pleasure to travel throughout Asia and Africa. Worked in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Jordan. But what really inspired me to seek public office is my own personal story. Like you, I'm an immigrant to this country. I struggled with English when I first came here, to the point where I was the only person pulled out of my class who needed help. But because of that special help that we as a society can provide, because of our very broad tax base, I was able to get help. And that help allowed me to make a living off words for 23 years. A kid who struggled with English when he first came here, to someone who's traveling the world and telling stories. One very brief story, that story hit me one day when I was of all places in Libya, just as Muammar Gaddafi fled his home in Tripoli during the Arab Spring. I cut off a bit of a chandelier to remind myself as I was leaving of my personal journey here in Canada, which is very similar to the same journey that many of you have taken here. So I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cahill.
Hi, my name is Kay, and I'm from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong. My dad was born in Hong Kong as well, and my grandpa was from Lahore, and he was kind of stationed in Shanghai at the time. We had 7 siblings in Hong Kong. We went to school in Hong Kong, and most of us went off to UK to finish our formal education. I spent 2 years near the Punjab border, and I was trying to learn how to read and write Punjabi as well. Anyways, I have 30 years of kind of business experience. I have always worked for myself, and I work in the management consultancy business, dealing mainly with aviation and hospitality industry. I have been in Richmond for nearly 30 years now. I've lived here for 30 years. I always lived in Richmond and always in the same house, and nearly crumbling now. My daughters, they went to school in England, but however, all my grandchildren are born here in Richmond per se, and they go to a private public school here. And what I have seen in the last so many years, both my children have to move out from Richmond because of the housing cost. They couldn't, and yes, I do miss my grandchildren per se. And so we are going to be here today and talk a bit more about what we are all doing here, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Mr. Chakma.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be here. I regard myself to be an old friend of this community because I've been here many, many times. My name is Chak Ao, and I'm a candidate in Richmond South Centre for the BC NDP. The reason for me to get into this race is to give the people in Richmond a choice, a real choice, and also a better choice. And I came to Canada in 1988, and I chose Richmond to be my home. And I live and work in Richmond. I'm a family therapist by profession, and I brought up my family here. I'm very passionate about my life, my family, and also the community. And that's why I get into public service in 1999. So I have been serving as a school trustee for 12 years, and then I became a city councillor in the last 6 years. And because I care about my community. And in public service, I always put the interests of the people in Richmond the first. It's not about myself, but about the community and the people. And in the past, I think Richmond has always voted Liberal. And in return, we got almost nothing but neglect. So I have enough, and that's why I think we should all be angry. The Richmond people were telling me that their life has become more and more difficult and unaffordable in the last few years. And the hospital and the schools are all important issues to me. And as a city councillor, I've tried to work those issues through, but the problem is that we did not get the support and the cooperation of the provincial government. That's why I want to bring these issues to Victoria. And I want to bring change. And I think change, and I think I have a track record of doing what I say, and I have a record of being able to bring results. So with your support, I think we can have a better Richmond and a better BC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're having a little technical difficulty, but we'll work through it. Thank you. Maybe. Okay. Mr. Ahmed Singh.
We're good?
Yep, we're good.
Excellent. Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Amandeep Singh. I am the NDP candidate for Richmond Queensborough. This masjid lies in that constituency, so I'm very, very honored to be here. For those of you that don't know me, I was born in Punjab in India, and like Kay, I also grew up in Hong Kong. I was educated at the University of California, Berkeley, and I did my law degree from the University of Victoria on Vancouver Island here. I've been a lawyer. I've been a social activist most of my life, and that's why one of the reasons I became a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for about 20 years now. I've done a lot of work with this community, with our community here in the Lower Mainland, and I've also been a small business owner. You know, I own my own small firm. My partner from my law firm is here today as well. I welcome her here today. After the past 16 long years of the BC Liberal government, watching my neighbors, my friends, and my own business struggle, I decided that enough was enough. They talk about balanced budgets and fiscal responsibility, but the real fact is that our debt has doubled under their watch, never mind the hidden debt that they have forced upon our crown corporations. Their mantra is that life is excellent, the economy is excellent, jobs are great, but my question, and this is the question that I get asked when I go on the doorstep and I'm knocking on the doorstep, is if the economy is so good and life is so good, then why can't average people, why can't the everyday person feel and live that? Too many average British Columbians like us, hardworking British Columbians with families to raise, mortgages to pay, businesses to run, have been left behind in the last 16 years, while this government serves only the ultra rich and well-connected. As a small business owner, I understand the importance of business and a robust economy, but I also understand the importance of an economy that works for everybody. It's time for a change, my friends. Let's build a better British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Ms. Reid.
Thank you very much. I'm Linda Reid, and I'm seeking re-election as a candidate in Richmond South Centre. Salam alaikum. It's lovely to be here tonight, because I do believe that democracy is fragile, and I do believe that every opportunity we can take to participate in the process, to engage in the process, strengthens us as we go forward. I think that's hugely important. I was a teacher by training. I completed a postgraduate degree at the University of British Columbia, and I taught in Richmond for more than 10 years. And I taught little guys who had autism. And the notion that parenting is challenging, no question. I give my highest accolades to families who have special needs youngsters because it's an amazing commitment, no question. I began my career volunteering in an array of different organizations, whether it was St. John Ambulance, whether it was the Girl Guides, whether it was the British Columbia Youth Parliament. I think all of those things strengthen community on a go-forward basis. I continue to work with the Lions Clubs in Richmond, Chamber of Commerce, Garden City Hospice Society, things that actually strengthen community. I believe in free enterprise with a human face. I believe the best social program in the world is a job. I believe we build community one baby at a time. I've been Speaker of the House since 2013. I was elected in June 26th of 2013. Prior to that, I served as Deputy Speaker, and prior to that, I served in Cabinet for 8 years. I was Minister responsible for early childhood development. Huge opportunity, I think, to take solid professional credential and apply it to the creation of public policy. That's what politicians do. They create public policy that with enough finessing actually becomes the law of the land on a go-forward basis. My husband and I live in Richmond, and we have 2 children, Olivia and Will. Our son is 13 and our daughter is 17. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this evening's debate.
Thank you. Mr. Marcilli.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Ryan Marcilli. I'm the Richmond North Centre candidate for the BC Green Party. I've been living in BC for about 20 years. I moved here when I was in my early 20s. Went to school here, went to Langara College. I also went to UBC and got an undergrad degree in political science. The last 4 years, I've been assistant chair of policy with the BC Green Party. Worked a lot on the policy book that we had online up before the platform. Also participated in quite a bit of work on the platform as well. The BC Green Party policy is member-driven. Our policy comes directly from our members. It's a grassroots organization, and as you know, we don't take any corporate or union donations because we believe that right now in BC that there is some real need of campaign finance reform. I think that we see that reflected in the last 16 years of cuts to healthcare and education. That's quite evident, even though in the last year or so, or just before the election, we've had some of that money come back to us, even though that was actually our money in the first place. The purpose of government is to facilitate the highest and the best outcomes for all British Columbians, not just the top 2 or 3%. And that means creating solid infrastructure, transportation, and also investing in healthcare and education for everybody. I'd like to see in the future more clean tech and also more innovation. That's going to be what's going to be driving our economy going forward. Once again, thank you very much for having me, and thank you.
Mr. Sakata?
Testing. Good evening, everyone. It's a sincere pleasure to be here. As we start the evening with beautiful serving of samosa and a lovely orange dessert. It was just delightful. It's the first time I've had that, so I've become quite addicted to that. Nevertheless, it's a pleasure to be here. I was born in British Columbia. My father was born here also, as his parents came to Richmond in the late 1800s. And I've gone through the the BC school system from grade 1 to grade 12, and then went on to university, UBC. And then later on, after I became a school teacher, achieved my master's degree at SFU. So that set the stage for my administrative career. I was a career principal for a number of years, retired in 1998. After that, I went to serve for 7 years in the Gitxsan community, First Nations. That's why I'm wearing this vest. This is a vest of the Gitxsan First Nations. I've been adopted into the Wolf Clan. We call them the Lac Lebu, and it's a house to Neget. And so, a pleasure to also speak to their voice as well. One of my concerns as a candidate is the fact that our province has not been served very well by the Liberals. They speak so much about balanced budgets, which they achieve through robbing BC Hydro and also ICBC. I believe we can do better. I'm a firm believer in investing in social resources, that is human resources, our kids. They're just as important as bridges and also LNG, so that's my position. Let's give the kids and the parents the priority they deserve. And every school, whether it be independent or public, deserves the very best in the years to come. Thank you.
And Mr. Wolf.
Hi there, I'm honored to be here. This is more than my first time being invited by the BC Muslim Association to speak at such an event. I'm also honored to see one of my former students in the audience. I am a high school teacher. I probably teach some other sons and daughters of yours. I teach at McNair Secondary. I'm a science and biology and outdoor ed teacher. I have 4 baby chickens that just hatched on the weekend in my classroom. I have a garden, and I really value the response to Andrew Weaver, who is our leader. He wrote this book for youth. It's called Generation Us. And in it, he asks 2 questions. He asks many questions, but 2 of them are, do we have any responsibility for the well-being of future generations? And the second question is, what can I do about it? Well, what I can do about it is running in elections and trying to inspire the youth So I am 35 years old. I've been born and raised in Richmond. My great-grandparents moved to Richmond as refugees coming out of a really hard time in Europe in those years. And I've really been instilled from my parents and my upbringing to leave this place better than I found it and to be part of the change. And so that change is through education. And the Green Party has called upon me because to me it is the change you can count on. Our policy document, this one, the newest one I'm holding up here, has 126 policy statements. It's not all about one issue, but it covers all the issues. And it covers the issues of the future. The matters that our children, our youth will have to deal with, and we don't want to have them sit back, or our society sit back and take things as they come and be a follower community. We want to be leaders. And again, I'm so thankful to be part of this process and to have you here tonight. And really, this is a critical election, more than any other 10 elections I've been in before this. This is the one that counts, so thank you for being here.
So thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. We now get to the part of the evening where we will hear from one spokesperson from each party. I'm going to ask you in alphabetical order, so that there's no draw this time. And you have 4 minutes to speak to us on your platform as you move forward a week from now. We're looking for the votes to be elected as the government. So from the Conservative Party, Ms. Hill. Yep, I guess you're the Conservative Party representative.
You planned that. Hi, I represent the BC Conservative Party for Richmond, Queensborough. The last time BC Conservative Party leader The last BC Conservative Party leader during the 2013 election was Mr. John Cummings, former MP for the Conservative Party of Canada. During that election, the BC Conservative consistently polled above as high as 23% during the last election. Unfortunately, we were unable to secure a seat at that election. The party did elect a leader. I just want to address that because most people are saying we are leaderless, So the party did elect a leader in September of the past year, but due to some technical issue with their rules and the regulation, the vote was vetoed, and therefore the party leader was not confirmed. What we call a lack of quorum. It was too late to select and confirm a leader before the start of this campaign, and that is why the media has tagged us as leaderless. BC Conservative Party has 10 candidates running in this election, and we believe that running in this election. You are our leader, you elect us, and we are here to serve you. I believe in faith, and I actually do have a leader. My leader is the constituency of Richmond, Queensborough. You hire me to work for you, and I will do my best. With a diverse demographic, we need a balanced government, a government that will reach out and work with the opposition in the best interest of the people. Points that we are concerned about right now, my party stands for repeal the carbon tax. It's a useless tax, and it's going to be a tax on tax because the federal government also got a carbon tax coming in. The school and hospital, I really would like to see our schools here in Richmond and hospital be safe. Get the seismic upgrade that they require, and I wish the next government coming in will see to it. The bridge. We don't need that bridge. We need to widen the tunnel because the bridge is going to be, environmentally, is not going to be friendly. And while it's being built, it's going to be a big traffic jam. To have such a big bridge, the reason for that is they're going to have the LNG tankers come through. They're going to dredge the river, and that will disturb, the eco-environment is going to be disturbed. But most importantly, all the fields we see on the east, southeast side of Richmond, they'll be all have to be taken out in order to accommodate that ugly bridge. Action, and also the housing crisis, I would like to see whoever the government will come into power to set up an action committee to curb this housing crisis that we have right now, because it's really spiraling out of control. And also for children, Minister of Special Ministry for Children. And what can I do? You're saying you don't even have a leader. What can you do? Every vote counts. Every vote counts. So we need a balanced government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pardon me. The Green Party representative, please, is next to speak.
So 4 years ago, when Andrew was elected, one of the first things that he said on the steps of the legislature was that he was going to, invest heavily into education. Education is pretty much the fundamental plank of our platform. It's lifelong learning, and it starts when you're 3 to 4 years old. That's actually when we do learn quite a bit about the world, and that's where we absorb a lot of knowledge. So our platform is to phase in funding for a comprehensive program for early childhood education, and also daycare as well. So up to 25 hours free early childhood education per week for 3 and 4 year olds. Free daycare for working parents with children under age 3, and up to $500 per month for families with children under age 3 and a stay-at-home parent. So early childhood education funding will rise from $495 million in 2017-18 to $1.38 billion in 2020-21. The initial focus will be on expanding spaces for early childhood education and care. And moving on to also just funding for K to 12 and post-secondary. And we would increase funding for schools in 2017-18 at $220 million and rising to $1.46 billion in 2020-21. And that would allow schools and districts to invest in every child and prepare students for the 21st century economy. Right now we have a very resource-based economy in BC. And the fact of the matter is that it's not sustainable. Not only that, but we're going to have automation coming. There's going to be a lot of changes coming with climate change as well. These are all things that we have to prepare for, and we have to prepare our kids for. Moving on to health. Health is an important issue in Richmond. We've got a hospital here right now that needs upgrading, and we need an acute care tower. If elected, the BC Green Party would fast track that project. We actually needed it 8 years ago, and the fact of the matter is that coming right now before an election, just getting that process started, it's a little too little, too late. But more so, we want to focus on wellness and preventative care. If you focus on wellness and preventative care, that's actually going to relieve a lot of stress on the healthcare system. So we would establish a ministry for responsible health promotion, disease prevention, and active lifestyles. We'd also promote healthy choices, explore additional measures to discourage the consumption of substances that can be harmful to health, such as tobacco or alcohol. And we also need to take care of our aging population. We'd also invest $35 million over 4 years in home care to enable seniors and other people who need assistance to stay in their homes. As we age, it's not really necessary that we go into homes. We can still age quite well at home with the proper care. And that means maybe restructuring the healthcare system so that we have more doctors that are able to make home visits. We have community centers where you have more nurse practitioners, you have just different healthcare professionals. We'd also invest $140 million into establishing that type of infrastructure. So those are the two things I wanted to focus on, because health and education, that's where we've seen the biggest cutbacks in the last 16 years. and we definitely need more investment in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Liberal Party representative.
I appreciate that immensely. I'm going to give you the highlights of the Liberal Party platform for 2017. It all starts with a job. Creating jobs and economic growth with the best trained workforce, creating 1,000 new grads in science, technology, engineering, and the math disciplines, investing $87 million in the BC Tech Strategy, the new innovation hub at Rawson Square, maintaining the most diversified economy in Canada, standing up for British Columbia on the softwood issue, expand buy local and grow local programs to encourage food production, diversify markets for wood products in China and India, and adding to the rural dividend. Keep more of your hard-earned dollars, moving to eliminate MSP over the long term, leaving more money in the pockets of British Columbians, saving daily commuters over $1,000 a year by capping bridge tolls at $500 annually, maintaining the carbon tax freeze, and new active seniors tax credits for respite care and for renovations. A smart, modern British Columbia, helping the middle class to buy homes, changing the scope of practice to help British Columbians get the health care they need, more money for British Columbia's open textbook program, which is currently sitting at $170 million, so that students can save the dollars and look online and not have to buy a textbook. Investing in infrastructure and transit, matching the federal government's $2.2 billion investment in Metro Vancouver Transit, and $333 million to keep BC Transit moving. Build the George Massey Replacement Bridge, and 100 years of clean energy with Site C. All of us rely on energy. Those projects are vitally important. Maintaining our world-leading K-12 education system, and we will review the funding formula for school districts, supporting the post-secondary sector, redirecting funds to focus on skills better aligned with the demand for programs, and $2.6 billion in capital spending by post-secondary institutions, and a one-stop shop for student applications. And a healthy, strong community, caring for people in communities, $2.7 billion towards new hospitals, 500 additional long-term care beds, 5,500 more hip and knee surgeries over the next 2 years, protecting communities with funding for the guns and gangs strategy, an early warning system for schools and hospitals in terms of seismic activity. And finally, protecting and enhancing our environment, standing up for British Columbia, and adding more money for parks and new campsites. Because the platform is extensive, I've given you the condensed version tonight, but those are the highlights. Thank you very much for your attention.
And the NDP representative.
So we have, our platform is centered around people, as opposed to big corporations and the ultra wealthy. So you won't hear a lot of numbers from me. It's very straightforward. Government is all about priorities. And the priorities of the government for the last 16 years have not been regular people. Our platform is about everyday people. We have 3 major commitments. Making life more affordable. We'll take immediate action to make your life more affordable, leaving more money in your pocket at the end of each month. Better services. We'll improve the services you and your family count on, especially healthcare and education. Both of these have been cut massively by this last government. So young people have every opportunity to succeed in life, and seniors can age with dignity. We'll create good jobs with a sustainable economy. We'll build a sustainable economy, creating thousands of good jobs with better wages in every corner of British Columbia. For 16 years, BC Liberals have nickel and dimed hard-working British Columbians while giving billions in tax cuts to the richest British Columbians. They've increased hydro rates, ICBC premiums, and ferry fares. They tripled tuition and doubled MSP's fees. They put steep tolls on key commuter bridges that affect a lot of us here, where transit options don't exist, and did nothing while the price of housing and rent went through the roof. In the last 2 years, before they brought in their 15% tax, the average price of a house in Vancouver went up $600,000. It's time for you, for the everyday person, to get a break you won't get from phony BC Liberal promises and their choices. The BC NDP will work for you and take real action to make your life more affordable. We'll get rid of MSP plans, saving families as much as $1,800 a year. We'll build 114,000 rental and co-op homes and provide renters an annual rental home credit of $400. We'll bring in $10 a day childcare. eliminate tolls in Port Mann and Golden Ears bridges. We'll eliminate the interest on student loans and provide students a $1,000 completion grant. We'll freeze BC Hydro rates and stop Christy Clark's 42% increase in ICBC rates until we look at ICBC and BC Hydro to figure out what's happened. We've done numerous Freedom of Information Act requests to try and find out what's happening in those organizations, and those come back blanked out. In terms of education and healthcare, we've already promised that we'll build the North Tower for Richmond. If you drive down Westminster and you look up at the tower, at the Richmond Hospital Tower, you'll see that there's actual physical cracks in the building. It's 50 years old. It needed to be upgraded a long time ago. We'll properly fund classrooms and school equipment so parents don't have to fundraise for classroom essentials. We'll replace portables with real classrooms and make our schools quite safe. We'll increase access to doctors, nurses, and health practitioners in your community. We'll build one of our key parts of our platform is to build urgent care centers where a lot of the care is decentralized, so nurse practitioners, so you get a holistic care instead of, and we believe that that'll relieve some of the stress on the healthcare system. We'll provide faster access to mental health services when and where people need them. We'll increase the time home care workers can spend with seniors, so seniors can stay in their own homes longer. And one of the things that's very important to me and very important to communities of minorities is we'll bring back the BC Human Rights Commission, which this government, as soon as they came in almost 16 years ago, took away. BC Human Rights Commission is, it was there, it was put in to protect the rights of minorities. We'll bring that back in right away. Thank you.
Thank you. We have heard from each of you on your party's platforms. We're going to change it up now because we like to throw curveballs. We are going to give each party the opportunity to respond to an important question for our community. You can hear the question, then you can decide which one of you would like to answer. There are two things that we're going to ask you, two questions that each party has 2 minutes to respond on. With the Quebec mosque shooting as a backdrop, and the racist flyers around town in Abbotsford, Surrey, and different areas of the city, of the province, there is an evident growing trend of racism. And we're using the word racism with purpose. How does your party plan to combat racism and discrimination if you are the next government? Conservative Party, you're first.
1 week? Am I going to be first all the time?
Not necessarily. I'm sorry. We were going in the order here? Yeah. Okay, so we'll go with Mr. Johal. Thank you.
Got to speak up, you see.
I'm first? Okay, myself? First of all, that's a very good question, and I know certainly visiting both mosques here, Blundell and the one on number 5 as well, we've talked quite a bit about Islamophobia. And I know the concerns from this community, and of course the broader community as well in regards to the specific messages that are left to people's homes in Steveston not too long ago. I do believe, Linda, you were at that rally as well when the community got together to speak out, and I know many folks from elected office were here and spoke out against the attack as well. I know the Premier and the party had set aside $100,000 for religious institutions, first of all, to help with their security, specifically mosques and synagogues. The specific issue about racism, I think our schools are the best to combat that, and our teachers do a very good job. We are at a very destructive time in our society, with jobs being lost, with growing intolerance, certainly highlighted even more so when you look at issues surrounding Mr. Trump. I think it's something that we have to continue to work at as a society. There's no magic bullet here that's going to change anything. We all know that those who have immigrated here for a long time know that. Our rules are there, our institutions specifically recognize some of these challenges that are there from our policing communities and to our schools as well. Islamophobia is one I think that's going to take some time. I'll be the first to tell you that. simply because, number one, it's kids being taunted at schools, and we need to recognize as educators and as policy leaders, number one. At the same time, we also know that also impacts employment. If you're applying for a job and you may not get it simply because of your heritage. We're cognizant of that. But I think the rules are already there in regards to dealing with that. It's a question of society being recognizing that's an issue and cognizant of trying to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hale, now you're up. You are number 2 now. Thank you.
I see this problem, as I said, we grew up in Hong Kong, and Amal will agree with me that we do, like being Indians in Hong Kong, we have a hard time trying to get jobs or go places where the ethnic Chinese immigrant kind of look at us in like, oh no, they are not good. They are like, they don't even know us, and they would just judge. So the situation, as Jazz so well put, he put it so well, is this problem really started from Donald Trump, and it's getting worse by the day. So as a grandma, I would say where and how we can teach the children, even young adult for that matter, is let's start from schools, let's start from community center, let's start from churches, let's start from mosque, gurdwara, wherever. I mean, there is no, as Jess saw, there is no bullet that is going to say, fix this issue. I think it has to start from our religious belief, and we teach the children, we don't do that, because there is no school, there is no curriculum, there is nothing is going to teach that. It's the children, the adult are going to see what their surrounding is, and then they go and do it. So this is, all we can do is keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. And maybe government can sometime, run some ads to educate people, equality kind of. So yeah, coming from Hong Kong, we know how it feels. Thank you.
Thank you. NDP representative, please. NDP.
Yes. So I've been a social political activist all my life. Me and my friend Imtiaz Popert in the back there, we were fighting with the anti-racism organizations from 30 years ago. In fact, Mr. Popert there is one of the founders of the Coalition Against Bigotry that held the rally in downtown after the mosque incident. And I was there. I was president of the rally. I don't think many of the people here was. We also had the anti-racism rally here in Richmond after the fires were distributed. We were there in New Westminster. So that's one of the ways to stop racism, is to speak out against it, right? Not only in schools, not only in education, but out in public. And one of the main ways to speak out against it is to let your politicians know that this is wrong, and to let the parties that have politicians that have thinly veiled racist policies, let them know that it's wrong by not voting for them, by not accepting what they're saying. I'm going to speak about this because Mr. Jason Kenney was just in town. Mr. Jason Kenney, Islamophobe, was part of one of the architects and one of the proponents of the niqab ban. Well, he's in town promoting Ms. Christy Clark, right? He's in town telling his conservative voters to support the BC Liberals because they're only liberal in name. These are the old conservatives, right? With due respect to the people here, I'm not sure, where they stand. But one of the most important ways to fight out against racism is, again, to let the politicians know that it's wrong. One of the ways to fight out against systemic racism is to have a BC Human Rights Commission, which they got rid of when they came to power. We'll bring that back in again. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And the Green Party representative, please.
Thank you very much. That topic is very dear to me, as I grew up under racism because of the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. My parents were interned for 7 years in internment camps, abandoned BC hydro plants, or abandoned settlements in isolated communities in BC. I was called every name under the sun after we came out of the internment camp. We're not very complimentary. But I had no Human Rights Commission. We had to be strong as individuals. My mother was the best teacher against racism. And in a sense, it was a bit of reverse racism. My brother and I were playing with his neighbor's boy, a white boy, and we got into an argument, and we were calling him all kinds of names in Japanese. And Mother called us for supper, and there she was with her arms folded and said, "What were you doing?" "Well, playing with Ronnie." "No, what were you doing?" "Well, we were swearing at him in Japanese." She said, "Don't you ever do that again. Ever." So that's where the teachings of anti-racism begins. It's on the mother's lap. That has to happen more and more. Secondly, leaders in every group, ethnicity, must also speak out against racism. In Richmond we have that, an example where there's this strata council that spoke only Mandarin, even though there are other speakers, and they were really quite reverse racism. That should never happen. Leaders in the Chinese community should have spoken out. Mr. David Lamb said, when you come to Canada, learn the language, learn the culture, and bring your best foot forward to the smorgasbord. I'll end my comment with this. Mauritius, a country off the east coast of Africa, is a country that has this metaphor. The leader said, "We are not a marmalade, we are a fruit salad." A fruit salad, every fruit has an identity, and all their children and their adults attend each other's religious place of worship and share their culture. That's what has to happen. And when I get into government, I'll make sure that we have that as a practice in our schools and our community, and encourage people to go and visit their special place of worship and honor each other as human beings with the same needs, the same fears, and the same hopes for our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to get into questions that have been submitted from our guests here this evening. We're going to focus first on social policies. The first thing is that we need to think about seniors in our communities. As we know that the population is aging quite rapidly, and we know that there's going to be a high demand for senior services, in particular with respect to healthcare and with respect to independent assisted living, and things of that nature. Today there was, on the news, there was a report about a fight between an 81-year-old and a 71-year-old man in a seniors care center where the 81-year-old man died as a result of this fight. The whole idea of enough care and enough resources allocated to seniors and to senior care is something that's quite important to our community. So we would like to hear from, first of all, Mr. Au, you're kicking off this section. What is your party's position on senior care, health care, and supporting seniors as they have contributed their whole life to BC, and now it's time for them to get services that will support them in their golden years?
Well, thank you for the question. This is a very important question to me. My mom is going to be 102 this week. And fortunately, she's living with my sister who takes care of her at home. So I think we have different groups of seniors in the community. Some are taken care of by family members. And for that, I think we have to support the family members to support their seniors. And for those old people who stay at home, we need to provide them with good home support care. The problem right now is that, number one, it's not enough. Number two, it's disjointed. So sometimes the seniors at home, they were met with different caregivers from week to week. So it's very difficult for the seniors to adapt to the newcomer every time. And also, we have to help the seniors who stays at home to make their life more affordable, like the MSP premium and the other drug pharmaceutical assistance. We have to provide that to them. But also very important is that we have to work on prevention. We have to work with the local government to provide space for the seniors to become active so that they won't rely so much on the medical system. So for those people who stays at home, we have to help them with home support and make their life more affordable. And secondly, for those people who are taken care of in senior centers, again, right now the problem is that we have very few services for them. Many seniors are waiting for a long time for getting into senior homes. I know of a situation. A 92-year-old mother was being sent to a senior home in Vancouver. And her 62-year-old daughter had a hard time to go visit her. So we need more service at the local level. And again, we have to work with the local government. In Richmond, the city government is doing a lot. But we try to work with this provincial government, and we went nowhere. So that's the frustration. And that's why I'm running, so that we can really have 2 levels of government, or even the 3 levels of government working together. And we can address the issue by working together also with the community.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the NDP. We would now get a 1-minute rebuttal from the Liberals, and then the Green, and then the Conservative. 1-minute rebuttal on social policy for seniors.
Thank you very much. I can certainly give you the... Thank you very much. I can certainly give you the heads up on where we are in terms of senior policy. Additional $500 million to improve care for seniors in residential care. Double the home renovation tax credit to $20,000 to make home improvements to accommodate seniors. Build and publicly fund an additional 500 long-term care beds across British Columbia. We created a continuum of care for seniors that includes home health care, assisted living, and residential care services. British Columbia has 32,000 publicly subsidized residential care, family care, and assisted living beds. The number of clients receiving home health services increased by 36%. The number of clients receiving professional services like community nursing and rehabilitation increased by 63%. So the opportunity to have individuals staying longer in their homes is absolutely well supported by the Liberal government, and the notion that we can continue to build homes, and there are new residential care beds coming to Richmond, 225 of them, 150 into Hamilton. The preload is on the site today, and 75 into the Fraser Intermediate Care Home. And that preload is off the site, and construction will begin probably within the next week or 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rebuttal from the Green Party. 1 minute.
It was reported earlier this year in January that 91% of care homes failed to meet the standards of the Ministry of Health, our own BC Ministry of Health guidelines, when it comes to staffing these areas. So my own personal context, I have my wife's parents. One is in a mental care home, and my mother-in-law is in a different care home due to her declining health from an ALS-like disease. In Richmond, I was witnessed as my grandmother passed in a private care home, and I was at my grandpa's side when he passed at Minoru Residential Care Home. And from my experience, as well as advisor at the Richmond Hospital Advisory Committee, there's a lack of communication between the provincial government and our Vancouver Coastal Health Authority. So there's clearly work to be done with the just face-to-face representation and hearing the issues and being a learner of what's needed. And then when it comes to funding, the BC Green Party would commit to, there's 4 areas where we really invest in infrastructure, and one of them is long-term care beds, so that's $40 million for that and $35 million for home care support. And additional, because of my own chronic health condition, I also value the fact that they would work to take essential drugs and put it towards a program to help decrease the costs. But that would have to be in partnership with the federal government, so we need to be a strong advocate here in BC. Thank you.
And the Conservative Party, response? 1 minute.
Senior care is very, very important. We are having way more senior that are now retiring. We are health-wise incapable of taking care of themselves. So, as a person whose party is not going to form a government, I will work with whoever forms the government next and insist on we need to have senior care. First of all, the senior, they like to have the same caregiver come in. They cannot change caregiver, you know. I would like to work with them to also have ethnic senior home, albeit smaller, work with the community, Punjabi speaking, Chinese speaking, Islamic Urdu speaking, you know, like a senior home. Because with those kind of senior home, they'll feel at home. They will not feel they have been imprisoned in a foreign planet somewhere. That's one thing I feel very, very strongly about, that we need to have senior home where our seniors are comfortable.
Thank you. The next question will be directed towards Mr. Singh. And this is on education, still sticking with social policy. There's about a whole bunch of questions on education, cherry picking here. Private funding we hear a lot about funding for secondary schools has diminished over a number of years. There's 2 teachers on the panel, there's one sitting here too. And we hear that this is something that is quite topical right now. The teachers, the Supreme Court of Canada recently overturned a lower court ruling resulting in now a renegotiation between the BCTF and the provincial government with respect to class size, composition, etc. So funding being an issue, private schools get 50% funding. What is your party's position on funding for private schools? We have a private school on our site here as a mosque school, faith-based school. So it's important to us as a topic and as an issue. What is your party's position on private school funding?
Our party's position on private school funding is very, very clear. Mr. Organ, our leader, sent a letter early in March because there was some things going around about that we are going to end private schools. Absolutely not true. Our position is very clear. We support the position of private schools. Private schools play a very important part in our educational system on many levels. Private schools ease up some of the stresses on public education. So they play a very important part. But not only that, also in a social aspect, they also play a very important part in a multicultural society, or as my friend likes to call it, a fruit salad society. They provide a diversity. They provide choice and diversity, and we're fully in support of that.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask a response from the Liberal candidate, please.
We believe in a strong public education system, a system that must also offer choice to parents. We believe in strong independent schools. From day one, we've said that. And funding, as you said, ranges from 35 to 50%. It saved the public education system money, one. It provides parents choice. And those very parents also pay for the capital costs of building those facilities. And they provide a strong basis to also for these kids to learn their own culture and their own faith. I believe that's very, very important. Just going to Punjabi class when I was a young kid. It plays an integral role in building people. I think that's very, very, very important. I know we have been attacked at times by other parties, other groups stating that we want to privatize education. No, we don't. We want to provide choice. My son goes to a public school. We're very happy with the education and the teachers, and also have friends who send their kids to independent schools as well, as they are happy. We believe in choice.
Green Party, please.
Yes, that's a topic that's very dear to me as a school principal, and also in the public system, as well as the First Nations school. I was a principal for 7 years. They have an independent school. And the reason they have it is that it's a cultural transmission. Just as you have your Muslim school, the First Nations have their First Nations school, so the language can be taught. Gitsan was taught at the language instruction, the school I was a principal of. Historically, private schools have always had a covenant with the BC government. Seventh-day Adventists have a special covenant with the BC government way before the public school system existed. The Catholic system has it. There is a place for both. And it is a strong aspect of our democracy in BC. But the public schools should not be denied funding as a result of special favoritism for the private system, which was under the leadership of Christy Clark. That happened. So my conclusion is that the existence of public and private schools are important because the kids from private schools go to public schools to finish their education. For example, from the Muslim school, I was talking to a gentleman, the kids here go to grade 8, after that they go to public school. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and that's important. Thank you very much.
The Conservative Party representative, please.
I agree the parents should have a choice, whether it's public school or private school. I do also agree that the government should support either or a private school. And but one thing I will add to it is like private school. If the government is going to support, while the government is supporting that, the parents, I would like to see there's a syllabus that they follow. It's not like, oh, we are private and we are going to do whatever we want to do. You know, so just follow the curriculum. It's very important. But definitely, I'm all for choice, and I'm all for supporting both public and private schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this next question will be kicked off to the Green Party, please. Sorry, we're going on that. Number 5, Linda Reid, sorry. Wrong list, yep. Linda Reid, Miss Reid. This is about economic policy. Paul Kershaw, a UBC professor, has written a report and he states, even on the Clark government's watch, young adults with full-time jobs are earning $1,200 less per year than before the Liberals took office. And then further talks about when the BC Liberals took power, the BC debt was about $34 billion, now it is $66 billion. How can, the questioner is asking, how can we be ensured that we can trust our government to follow through on the things they say they're going to do with respect to economic growth when we look at the track record over the last number of years?
I'm delighted to answer the question. Paul Kershaw and I actually worked together at the University of British Columbia. We were graduate students, and he sat actually on my advisory committee for early childhood development. In terms of how you fund, we certainly have always balanced the budget in British Columbia the last 5 years, 5 consecutive balanced budgets. Do you basically borrow dollar to build capital, to build infrastructure in the province of British Columbia? The answer to that is yes. And even in terms of seismic upgrade for the schools in Richmond, $92 million has been invested. So you have an operating dollar and you have a capital dollar. And in terms of we will certainly retain and repay those dollars. But all of us have had an opportunity to expand our homes, expand a different community infrastructure, and those things cost money, and that's capital investment in the province of British Columbia.
Thank you. Green Party representative, 1 minute rebuttal. 1 minute rebuttal to the question. Green Party representative.
When it comes to economics, it's really quite interesting. There are two theories. So hard to compete against feedback. There are two theories. Milton Friedman believes in the free economy. In other words, the capitalist system will raise capital, create wealth, and there'll be a trickle-down factor. That doesn't happen because 1% controls 99% of our economy. Whereas John Keeney said the state must intervene. And to my extent, my understanding with the Liberals, they've not done that as well as they should have. And that's why the Green is going to advocate for ensuring there's a correct balance between the theories of Milton Friedman and John Keeney's, that the state must step in when the delivery is not happening in terms of the care for all the citizens in our community, starting with the young. The young do not have a long time. 1 year is a lifetime for a child. So we need to intervene ASAP and invest in social investment, not just capital investment. Thank you.
Conservative Party rebuttal, 1 minute.
You see, that's the problem of having a two-party system. Whoever is in power is going to go do whatever they want to do. Nobody's going to stop that. If there's a balanced government, if there's more than two parties in the legislature, that the ruling party will have to reach across the floor and work with the other MLAs, and that way we can hold their feet to fire and say, no, do this. Otherwise I'm not voting with you. I'm going to vote with the other guy. So that's why I'm here today. We need a balanced government. NDP, Liberal, Green, everybody. Conservative, don't forget. Thank you.
Now, I beg to differ with Roy a little bit. This government has intervened, but they've intervened at the expense of everyday people. They've intervened to the benefit of the wealthy and well-connected, and that's what they've done. The BC Liberal government talks about fiscal responsibility, but as the question states itself, the deficit has almost doubled, right? Something more than $10 billion within this premier's watch. But it's not just that doubling, not just our debt doubling. There's a hidden debt as well that they force upon our companies, upon our crown corporations. BC Hydro, ICBC, they balance their budget by using this deferral account, by forcing our companies to give them money, bankrupting them essentially. Not only that, they balance their budget by creating a social deficit, as Roy says, by taking away from healthcare, from education, from the people that they don't care about. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're sticking with the economy for a little bit here. Topic that's in the news quite recently, of course, and has been under our scrutiny, has been the George Massey Tunnel. But as part of a larger issue concerning traffic congestion, concerning infrastructure maintenance and sustainability of infrastructure, and also the environment. They're all linked issues. What is your party's, and this question is going first of all to Mr. Marcy. What is your party's position on how you will fund and pay for infrastructure and other economic projects if things like tolls are given away and there's no more tolling on bridges on the one hand? On the other hand, when the crumbling infrastructure has to be rebuilt and maintained, how do you plan to get money to pay for it? Green Party, please. Yep, whoever would like to, Mr. Marcinio, I beg your pardon, Mr. Marcinio. Yeah. And then a 1 minute rebuttal from the other person.
Yeah, the Massey Tunnel is an expensive project, over $3 billion. And the fact of the matter is that tunnels, I often hear about, well, what would you rather be on, in a tunnel or on a bridge if there's an earthquake? The fact of the matter is that in a tunnel you're going to be safer. Tunnels you can actually build to be very seismically resistant. And not only that, but it's not as expensive. All the money that we would save from not building a bridge and twinning the tunnels, we could put towards public transportation, expanding the SkyTrain system, have a SkyTrain all the way out to Abbotsford, all the way out to Chilliwack. We can have a SkyTrain linking all the way around to North Vancouver. We can link up the whole lower mainland, and eventually maybe even link up to Victoria. The fact of the matter is that we're going to need more transportation, clean transportation. Light rapid transit out to the valley. We can build all that, but if we're going to spend $3 billion on a tunnel, and then pull that, or on a bridge, and then pull that tunnel out of the ground, out of the riverbed, dredged riverbed, all that brackish water is going to move up. We also have something called food security. We import better than half of all our vegetables from California and Mexico. With climate change, we're going to need more agricultural land. We really need to be producing more of our vegetables here in Richmond. That land in East Richmond, it's just sitting there. We can be using that to be growing all our vegetables for all the many restaurants that we have in Richmond, and also the people. Site C is going to take up a lot of really good agricultural land. Going forward, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to need the agricultural land. We need to improve the regulations and protect that agricultural land. Thank you.
a response from the Green Party, the NDP Party.
Well, this is a very typical example that this current government is trying to solve the problem of today by using a method of the past century. We know that by building a bridge and toll people for using the bridge, we will not solve the traffic problem. We have failures in the province. And in Richmond, we know that we have a traffic problem, but this can be addressed not by a bridge, at least not by this bridge as proposed. So our policy and our approach right now is that we need to work with the Mayor's Council in the Lower Mainland. And right now, 21 out of 22 mayors in the area oppose to this bridge for many, many good reasons. And at the city government, we are trying to ask the provincial government for information to judge whether or not this is the best design. But up to this day, we have been denied of information. We have to use the FOI to get information, but we are not getting the information we need to make a decision. So if the NDP is going to be the government, we will consult with the community and the Mayor's Council for a solution.
Thank you. The Conservative Party response.
About the Site-C Dam, it's kind of a done deal. And can we stop it? Can we not stop it? I won't even go there because I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't want to just say something I don't know, to be very honest. You know, like we got to assess the situation there. As for the tunnel, my prime concern, of course we can, twin the tunnel. But why are we putting the bridge in? They're putting the bridge in because they're going to bring those LNG tankers through. And they got to dredge the Fraser River by putting a big plan in between Richmond, Lanner, and Surrey. I mean, like seriously, it's not safe. They want to put a bridge in, put a small bridge. Why put such a monster bridge if it's really going to be a bridge? So the reason for such a big bridge, the highest bridge in the biggest bridge in North America, it doesn't make sense, and is environmentally is damaging to the environment, and that is my prime concern. Money, yes, of course, is going to be a lot of money too. So, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The Liberal Party response, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are a growing region. We have 500,000 more people moving to Vancouver by 2030, 2035. 500,000 people are moving. We have to move goods and services, and we have to move people. The Canadian Automobile Association has already stated that this is one of the top 20 choke points in Canada. That impacts people getting home. That impacts our ability to compete globally for our port. So it's vital infrastructure that has built this province, number one. I think we need to remind ourselves of that. The other thing also is that we keep talking about this massive bridge. It's 10 lanes. The Granville Street Bridge, I believe, is 8 lanes, just to put it in perspective for you. Yes, this is going to be a little bit higher, of course. But it's vital infrastructure. You may all in 20 years be driving electric cars, but you're all going to be driving cars still. They're not going to be taken off the road just like that. We'll need transit. We've already put $2.8 billion towards it, and the federal government's going to match that. We're going to have SkyTrain, we're going to have buses, but you're all still going to use cars. I hope they're electric cars, but we'll still need bridges to move people and goods and to keep Canada and British Columbia competitive when it comes to jobs and the economy.
Thank you. There's no follow-up. Sorry, you've already followed up. So, okay, we're going to switch to the next question now, and this is a question related to law and order, and this is now for Mr. Sakasta. And it's actually a topical question which possibly the provincial government doesn't really have a lot of sway on. Marijuana is going to be legalized according to our Prime Minister. We know that there are large, long-term negative effects of drug use on families, on social agents, and people who are working in the field talk about the long-term negative effects upon teens as they move forward. So if marijuana is legalized, and we know that organized crime, of course, is going to do everything that they can to maintain their economic well-being, what is your party's position on dealing with potential fallout from the legalization of marijuana on our youth? And that is for now Mr. Sakata. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a topic that has been on the minds of parents since 1968. There was a war on drugs by Lyndon Johnson, and the society has lost the war. The drug cartels are taking over our earth, and they're shooting each other to maintain that turf, and that's one aspect of the marijuana and drug trade. The other aspect is Holland has legalized marijuana, and they have not gone into the proverbial basket. So is Colorado, and so is Washington. Their society is not broken down, and they all are not suffering as some people would claim. The position of the Green is that the federal government has not laid out any guidelines at all. They're going to legalize it fully in 2018. In the meantime, they're saying to the provincial governments, start discussing how you're going to manage this, in particular to protect the young from being involved. The Liberal government in BC has done nothing. They've not even talked about it. That's a very, very bad feeling on their part. Our party will talk about it, involve all the leaders in the community, both the medical and the leaders of all the different groups in our society, and find out what is the best practice in other countries, and what you think is the best practice for not only our children, but also knowing that there is the medical use of marijuana as well. So there's a balance between recreational and medical, and we need to get our minds together, our mindset together as people. And that's what our position is. Let's talk about it. Let's then come to a conclusion as to what is the best regulation policy to have the marijuana in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One minute response from the Liberal Party, please.
Thank you very much. Certainly as a teacher and certainly as a parent today, we want, and I think every single person in this room wants to be sure that this product will be kept away from children, also kept away from organized crime. The notion that it is yet, much debate still needs to happen. It's at the legislative stage federally. They've had the discussion in principle. They've had committee stage. What they haven't had is the writing of the regulation. So every province is waiting to hear how the federal government wishes us to engage. Because the detail, the devil is in the details, and the detail will be found in the regulation. And it does take 6 months to 8 months, sometimes a bit longer, for the federal government to consult with each of the jurisdictions in terms of what that enforceability looks like. Because that's the crux of whether or not this legislation goes forward and is a kindness to certainly the families in British Columbia who are right to be concerned, but certainly with a product that's labeled, with a product that is kept away from organized crime, and our absolute priority is this is a product that needs to be kept away from our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Conservative Party, 1 minute rebuttal, please. Conservative Party, Ms. Hale.
Legalizing drug, I think before we go and legalize drug, the first thing we got to do across Canada, our law and reprimanding system is so lax that people that are going to go break the law, like buy drugs when they're not supposed to, if it's not legalized, the penalty is like just a tap on the hand and off they go. So I would say before legalizing any marijuana, the best thing to do is look at our punishment system, for lack of better words here. Anyway, I don't agree with the bridge, but Jess. Like a tunnel can move more people too if you widen the tunnel.
Can we focus on the response to this question, please?
I just have to come back to that.
Well, we've shifted to this question, please. Thank you. Thank you. NDP?
Deregulation of controlled substances is a federal thing. So we've known for some time, since the federal election, that this has been coming. And it falls upon the provincial government to have things in place, to have policies in place to deal with it. right? And which the Liberals haven't really passed up on. But there's a second aspect to this. You know, we talk about drugs, we talk about addiction, we talk about mental health. Those are issues that also need to be dealt with, right? It's just not about access to marijuana or access to substances. And our party has a very strong platform on that. You know, we go beyond that. We go beyond that and look at the actual causes of addiction, actual causes of mental health stresses. And our government, one of the key parts of our platform is that we will have a minister in charge of mental health and addictions. I mean, we've gone through a fentanyl crisis here that's tragic. You know, these are daughters, sons, wives, husbands of people, right? And I think if you're going to have any sort of policy, it really has to focus on that and has to be from that perspective. Thank you.
Okay, we are at a point in the program where, because we are approaching sunset, it is time for our sunset prayers. We have two things that we can do, two options, and we would leave it to the panel. We know that we had said we would be wrapping up by prayers, but it's quite engaging. I don't know what your time is like. Maybe you can, while we're doing the prayers, we could have you decide if you're able to stay for another half an hour after the prayers, and then we would commit to that, only half an hour more after the prayers. So maybe if you can consult each other for 5 seconds or so to see what you think. If not, we are going to end the program at this point and give you a minute to wrap up. The call to prayer will happen shortly, but the prayer will begin in 4 minutes. So we're kind of like on a little bit of a tippy scale here. So why don't you have a little conference there for a second?
Who wants to go with their hands up?
So that's we do not want. That's why we do not want you to feel obligated. We're just saying, if you can, great. If you can't, we are really thankful that you are here. So let's just by a show of hands, who has prior commitments and who cannot? Okay, great. Is there anybody that can stay behind that would like to? Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, because all panelists have the majority have prior commitments, I think it's only fair for us to wrap at this point in time. I'm going to give each candidate, if we can delay the adhan for 3 or 4 minutes, the Aqama for 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to give each candidate a chance to answer this question and then make some closing remarks. 1 minute. The question is, 1 word to describe yourself, and then your closing remarks. And we will go in reverse order. Number 8, Michael Wolf. 1 word to describe yourself and 1 minute for closing remarks.
Learner. I have a number of things I could mention of what makes me a great learner. I'm currently doing my master's degrees. I learn from my students, and I have to say, the Muslim students, many of whom have come from here during their early years, are the best students, the most respectful, the top achieving students. I don't know, I'm guessing to know some of your teachers now are exceptional in what they do, but they're really instilling a great value and doing a great service to the greater community. So I'm honored to be able to teach them for their later years. Just to wrap up a little bit more about me and my issues, 2 big things. The Green Party does not have a whip. The NDP, the Liberals do. They also are supported by big money, corporations and unions. What that does is prevents them from voting for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sakata, 1 minute, 1 word, and a closing statement.
Advocate. I am a strong advocate for all learners to define themselves and not have others define them. I taught my 2 children that way. You know who you are, you have your values, you're taught it. Defend your values and also don't have someone else describe who you should be. And I say that to all adults as well. Adults face that in the workplace too, with discrimination. Don't let other people define you and defend your rights to the utmost, and there's a process to follow. and I'm glad we live in a democracy, and I plan to support it and teach all my own grandchildren the same thing as they're growing up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Marcinier, your one word and your closing remarks.
My one word to describe myself would be compassionate. I think that we need a lot more compassion in the world for our fellow men, and it's more than just tolerance. It's actually loving everybody, and that's what makes a good society, is complete and total acceptance and compassion for everybody. Most importantly, everybody get out and vote on May 9th. You know, we only had about 43% of Richmond come out and vote in the last election. That means that, you know, with the first past the post system, only 25% of the electorate actually elected their MLAs. So go out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. All that matters is that you show up at the polls. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Reid, your one word and your closing remarks. Ms. Reid?
My one word would be parliamentarian. In my closing remarks, I want our kids working and raising their kids close to home. Richmond is a wonderful, caring, and welcoming community, one I am proud to call home. Richmond is also about family. I will continue to do all I can to ensure your kids and mine have opportunities for a prosperous future. I am Linda Reid, the candidate for Richmond South Centre, and I ask for your support. Advance voting, British Columbia, May 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and a general election day on May 9th. Again, I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, one word and your 1 minute closing remarks.
Empathetic. I've been a lifelong advocate for people. I did that before I became a lawyer, then I became a lawyer. I've been an advocate for my clients for over 20 years. I want to transition that. Let me be your voice in Victoria. Let me be your advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Al, your one word and your closing remarks.
Yeah, my one word is hyphenated. Putting my community first. This is the reason that I'm running. Because I've been a councillor for 6 years, and I've seen the problems in my community. The hospital, schools, the seniors are not getting their services. And we try to work with the provincial government, and we are being ignored. So the status quo is not acceptable. And I'm going to go to Victoria and bring your voice to the provincial government. And hopefully, by working with the local government and with the partners in the community, we can make Richmond better. So for me, better Richmond, better BC, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Ms. Hill, your one word and your closing remarks.
He stole it. It's compassion. I'm a compassionate person and straight shooter, and I call it as it is. I don't mince words. Having said that, I would also like to take this wonderful opportunity to thank my fellow candidates here. Jazz, I really do respect you a lot. I think you are a brilliant fella and you will do good. Linda, I respect you for the services you have put in, and I really do appreciate that, you know. And you guys, we were going to keep fighting. And Mr. Principal, it was nice working with you. And Mike, I know Mike since 2004, you know, so always come. And Aman Singh, albeit he's MVP, but he has been helping me all the way through and through. And Chuck, I know since 2004, and it's a privilege. I really enjoy this team. They're very decent people, and I hope on May the 9th you go out and vote. And please bear in mind we need a balanced government. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johal, your one word and your closing remarks.
One word would be committed. I've always been committed in telling the stories of British Columbians for the last 23 years. And I would be the same type of person who would advocate for residents here in Richmond, Queensborough. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership isn't easy. This government for the past 16 years has tried to find a balance. We've balanced to the point where we have strong jobs and economy in this as well. A very strong economy, jobs, over 200,000 created in this province, the vast majority of them full-time. At the same time, in that time that we've held power, we have doubled the healthcare budget, a 40% increase in our public education budget as well. That's not easy. Leadership is difficult, but we think we've made the right decision, and we have the strongest economy, in this country, and that's the reason why. Thank you so much to all my candidates here and all of you. Shukran.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this concludes our election panel for the 2017 election. I encourage you to get your friends and families, brothers and sisters who are in voting age to go out and vote. The democracy is only as strong as each citizen, and each citizen has earned the right to put an X on a ballot with a free choice. I charge the candidates to run an election that is clean, that is honest, open, fair. I charge those elected to govern with compassion, with justice, and with honor. We thank you for coming to our mosque. May God guide you all in your deliberations and governance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If anybody would like to remain after candidates, if you don't have to rush off, our prayers are going to be 10 minutes if you want to greet anybody. Please be welcome.